When my daughter told me not to come for Christmas, I was sitting at her kitchen island peeling potatoes for a dinner I was no longer invited to. "Dad, wait," Emily said, taking the knife from my hand like I was a child who couldn't be trusted with sharp objects. "We need to talk before you start on those." Her house smelled like cinnamon candles and new appliances. The kind of warm, expensive smell you only get when a place is freshly remodeled. Stainless steel fridge, marble countertops, a double oven that still had the plastic film on the display. I remembered every invoice. Every time I'd written a check or approved a transfer. "What's up?" I asked, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "You want me to do the carrots instead?" She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the diamond on her left hand catching the light from the pendant lamps I'd installed last spring. "Actually, about Christmas," she began, eyes flicking toward the doorway that led to the living room. I could hear her husband, Mark, in there, laughing at something on the TV. The football game's commentary drifted faintly through the house. My stomach did a little flip. "What about it?" "I already bought the turkey. 20 pounds, just like you asked." Her fingers twisted together. She'd done that when she was nervous since she was 6. "Right," she said. "So, this year is going to be a little different." I tried to smile. "Different how? You switching to ham on me?" "Your mother would haunt us both." Her mouth twitched, but she didn't laugh. "Dad, listen." She leaned on the counter, lowering her voice. "Mark's parents are flying in from Florida. They haven't spent Christmas with us in years, and they really want it to be intimate. Just their side of the family. His mom is particular about how she likes things." "Particular," I repeated slowly. "What does that have to do with me?" She bit her lip and looked at the floor. "They booked flights," she said finally. "They're staying in the guest room, and then Mark's sister and her kids are going to be on the air mattress in the office. It's going to be really crowded. And with you here, it might just be too much." I stared at her. "Too much," I echoed. "You know how his mom gets," she rushed on. "She's very traditional. She has all these little rituals for Christmas. They open presents a certain way, they sing around the piano, they don't like anyone else cooking. She already made a comment last time about your style in the kitchen." "My style?" I said. "You mean the turkey I've been making since before you were born? The one you used to brag about to your friends?" "It's not about the turkey," she snapped, then immediately softened. "I just don't want any tension. You and Mark's dad don't always see eye to eye, and his mom feels awkward when you start talking about money and politics and stuff. It would just be easier if this year it was just them." The words hung between us, heavier than the pot roast in the slow cooker. "So you're asking me not to come," I said. She flinched. "Not asking. Just suggesting that maybe you could go to Aunt Carol's this year. Or do something with your church. We can do something with you the weekend after. Like a second Christmas. It'll be fun. A second Christmas. Like I was a meeting that could be rescheduled." I looked around the kitchen, at the custom cabinets I'd helped design, the backsplash I'd spent a weekend installing, the mortgage bill on the fridge, held by a magnet shaped like a snowman. My name was on that bill. Every month for 7 years, the payment had come out of my account. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked quietly. She shifted her weight. "We've been talking about it since October. Mark's mom booked their tickets months ago. It's their turn, Dad. We did Christmas with you the last 2 years." "With me?" I repeated. "You mean at my house, the one I had to sell to help you get this place? The house where you grew up? That with me?" Her cheeks flushed. "You offered to help. No one forced you." She was right. No one had forced me. Guilt and love were more than enough. Emily, I said, keeping my voice steady, who do you think has been paying this mortgage? She rolled her eyes. Not this again. Answer the question. Fine, she snapped. You send money. A lot of money. We're grateful, okay? But it's our house. Our life. And right now, our life would be less stressful if you didn't come for Christmas. The knife might as well have gone through my chest instead of the potatoes. You're grateful, I repeated. Very grateful. Grateful enough to tell the person covering your roof not to sit under it on Christmas Day. Her jaw tightened. Don't be dramatic. I let the silence stretch. From the living room, Mark yelled at the TV. A commercial jingle floated in, cheerful and oblivious. Does Mark know you're saying this? I asked finally. We talked about it together, she said. We just thought, with everything going on, it would be best. For who? I asked. Because I'm not hearing anything about what's best for me. Her eyes flashed. You're an adult, Dad. You'll be fine for one day. It's not like you don't have options. Maybe it's time you got used to being on your own. You can't expect to always be the center of everything. I swallowed. I haven't been the center of anything in this house for a long time, I said. I've just been the safety net. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Please don't make this harder, she whispered. I'm trying to keep the peace. Of course she was. She was always trying to keep the peace, as long as that meant keeping her in-laws comfortable. I straightened up, feeling every one of my 59 years in my spine. All right, I said. If that's what you want. Relief washed over her face. Thank you for understanding. We'll make it up to you, I promise. Maybe we can go to that steak place you like in January. I nodded, set the peeler down, and wiped my hands one more time. I'll get out of your way, I said. I walked through the living room, past Mark sprawled on the couch. He glanced up, barely pausing the game. You heading out, Dan? He asked. Yeah, I said. Looks like I've got other plans for Christmas. He frowned, confused for half a second, then shrugged and turned back to the screen. Outside, the air had that sharp December bite that makes your breath look like smoke. Frost clung to the edges of the front lawn I'd paid to have landscaped. The inflatable snowman Mark had bought on sale leaned slightly to one side. I stood there on the walkway for a moment, looking back at the house. The warm light glowed through the windows. A wreath I'd bought hung on the door. I'd thought this place was our shared dream. Turns out, I was just the financing department. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from my friend Joe flashed across the screen. Got the fishing photos printed. Dropping them off tomorrow? I stared at the screen, then at the house, then at the sky that was starting to turn the color of old bruises. By the time I pulled out of the driveway, the decision had already started to form in the back of my mind. It wasn't loud yet, just a quiet, stubborn thought. If you don't want me at your table, you can pay for your own table. By New Year's Day, the bank would stop calling me about the mortgage altogether. They'd be calling my daughter, asking why the primary payer had disappeared. If you've ever been told by your own child that you're too much at Christmas while your money is welcome every other day of the year. Stay with me. You're going to want to hear exactly what happened when I stopped being their safety net and let them hit the ground they'd been walking on with so much arrogance. My name is Daniel Ruiz. I've been a father longer than I've been anything else. I met my wife, Jenna, when we were 19 and working nights at the same diner. I was the guy sweating over the grill, she was the waitress with the quick smile who somehow remembered every order without writing it down. We got married young, bought a tiny house on the edge of town, and had Emily 2 years later. We didn't have much, but we had each other. When the washing machine broke, we hand-washed clothes in the bathtub. When the car died, we took the bus. We put $5 in an envelope for vacation and another $5 for emergency every week, like it would magically make us middle class. The one thing we agreed on, from the moment Emily was born, was that our daughter would have it easier than we did. Not in the sense of being spoiled, we couldn't afford spoiled. But we wanted her to have options. To go to college if she wanted. To leave this town if she chose. So, every month, no matter how tight things were, we put something aside for her. At first it was in coffee cans at the back of the pantry. Later, when Jenna's cousin who worked at a bank sat us down with brochures and earnest eyes, we opened a dedicated account. Educational savings, the paper said. For your child's future. I remember signing those forms, Jenna's hand on my arm. This is our promise, she'd whispered. Even if something happens to us, she'll have this. Something did happen, much sooner than either of us expected. Jenna was 39 when the mammogram found something that needed a closer look. 2 years later, I was a widower staring at a stack of medical bills and an empty side of the bed. Emily was 19, home from her first semester at community college. She tried to be strong, hovering around the hospice bed we'd set up in the living room, making smoothies Jenna never drank, talking about her classes like any of it mattered. After the funeral, it was just the two of us in a house that felt too big and too quiet. Friends brought casseroles and said things like, "You'll get through this," and "She's in a better place." None of them had to figure out how to pay for both grief counseling and the electric bill. I took every overtime shift my construction company would give me. I sold Jenna's car. I cashed out the tiny life insurance policy we'd taken out when we were still naively optimistic newlyweds. One thing I didn't touch was Emily's savings account. "Promise me," Jenna had rasped, gripping my hand in those last hours when the morphine made her words slur. "No matter how hard it gets, don't take from her future. Don't make her pay for our bad luck." "I promise," I'd said, tears burning tracks down my face. I kept that promise. Even when the roof leaked and the heaters rattled. Even when I had to choose between fixing the bathroom or replacing the bald tires on the truck. I picked up side jobs on weekends, installing cabinets, repairing decks, anything to keep the main income flowing and the savings untouched. Emily finished her associate's degree but didn't transfer to a 4-year school right away. "It's too expensive," she'd said. "I can help more if I stay near home." She picked up work as a receptionist at a dental office, then as an assistant at a physical therapy clinic. That's where she met Mark. He was charming in that easy, confident way Jenna had never trusted but that always made my daughter's eyes sparkle. He was a personal trainer, tall and blonde with a smile that looked custom-ordered from an orthodontist. His clients adored him. So did Emily. The first time he came to dinner, he complimented my cooking, asked polite questions about my work, and cleared his plate without being asked. I wanted to dislike him on principle, but he made it difficult. His parents, on the other hand, made it easy. Richard and Barbara Lewis swept into our lives like they were touring a charity project. He was a retired financial advisor. She did volunteer work at various committees that always seemed to involve galas and photo ops. They lived in a gated community across town where all the houses looked like the ones you see in brochures. When they invited us for brunch the first time, Barbara took one look at my well-worn work boots and said, "Oh, Daniel, you should have told us. We could have given you the name of a good shoe store." It was framed as kindness. It didn't feel like it. Still, I bit my tongue. For Emily. For the way she looked at Mark like he hung the moon. They got married in a modest ceremony behind the church Jenna had loved. The Lewises pushed for a country club reception, but Emily insisted on something simple. "We can't ask Dad to pay for that," she'd said firmly when Barbara suggested a band that cost more than my truck. For a while, it seemed like things might balance out. Emily and Mark rented a small apartment not far from my place. We had Sunday dinners together. They came over to watch the game, to borrow my ladder, to ask for help assembling furniture that arrived in boxes with foreign instructions. Then the pregnancy test turned positive, and everything accelerated. "We need more space," Emily said one night, her hand unconsciously protective on her still flat stomach. "A yard. A real house." "A house?" I'd echoed, glancing at Mark, who was scrolling on his phone. "I've been looking at numbers," Mark said quickly. "If we find something under 400, we can swing it. My parents offered to assist a little, but they think we should show we're responsible, you know?" By assist, it turned out they meant paying for an upgraded washer-dryer. The bank, unsurprisingly, saw two mid-20s kids with average credit and student loans and said, "You'll need a co-signer, and at least 20% down." "That's $80,000, Dad," Emily had whispered, panic creeping into her voice. "We don't have that kind of money. We barely have enough for the inspection." They'd found a 3-bedroom colonial on a cul-de-sac not far from a good elementary school. Built in the 80s, solid bones, ugly wallpaper. I could picture repainting the nursery myself, building shelves in the garage, teaching my future grandkids to ride bikes on that smooth, quiet street. I also pictured Jenna, folding laundry in our first cramped rental, saying, "We'll give her what we never had." "There's the educational account," I'd said slowly. "You know we've been saving for you since you were little." Emily's eyes widened. "No, Dad. That's for my degree." Your mom wanted you to have options," I said. "You can still go back to school. There are grants, night classes." "But this," I looked at the photo of the house again. "This is a chance to give your kid what we never did. A stable home from day one." It wasn't a perfect choice. But life had taught me that sometimes all you get are imperfect choices. We cashed out most of the account for the down payment. I kept a small portion aside in a separate savings account, still earmarked Emily's education in my mind. I co-signed the loan. To keep the interest rate low, we agreed I'd be the primary borrower. Emily and Mark were co-borrowers. "The payment is $2,200 a month," Mark said, tapping on a spreadsheet he'd made. "If we split it 3 ways, it's not that bad." 3 ways. Somewhere, Jenna was sighing. I knew what their salaries were. I knew what diapers and formula and doctor's visits cost. I knew what my own bills looked like. I also knew something Emily didn't. If they fell behind and my name was on that loan, the bank wouldn't care whose fault it was. They'd come for me. So I told them I'd cover the first year of payments to give them breathing room. 1 year turned into 2. 2 blurred into 3. When Mark's gym cut his hours, I picked up the slack just for a while. When Emily went part-time to stay home more with baby Oliver, the while stretched. I set up an automatic transfer so I wouldn't forget. Every month on the 15th, $2,200 slid quietly out of my checking account and into theirs. I adjusted my life around that number. I stopped going out to eat. I delayed fixing the transmission on my truck for 6 months. I took on private repair jobs after hours until my back ached and my hands cramped. "Dad, we're so grateful," Emily would say, hugging me in the doorway, the baby babbling on her hip. "We'll pay you back someday." I smiled and said, "I know you will," even though we both knew the math made that unlikely. The Lewises, for their part, acted like the house had materialized out of nowhere. "This is just lovely," Barbara would say, swanning through the kitchen with her wine glass. "So much nicer than that apartment." Of course, real estate is the best investment. You kids are so smart. If Richard ever wondered how 2 young people on modest salaries managed a mortgage bigger than his first one, he never said so. He'd clap Mark on the back and talk about interest rates and leveraging assets, sprinkled with phrases like golden handcuffs and smart debt. Whenever we were all together, I found myself shrinking, playing the part of the blue-collar dad in the background. The one who could be trusted to fix the leaky sink but not to join the conversation about stocks. Still, I told myself, this is for Emily. For Oliver. For the future. The first time Emily forgot to invite me to a family barbecue, I brushed it off. "We thought you were working," she'd said when I asked about the photos on social media. The second time, she said, it was just Mark's side, "Dad. You would have been bored." The third time, I stopped asking. Years slipped by in a blur of home repairs, birthday parties, and mortgage payments that felt less like a gift and more like a habit I couldn't break. Until the day my daughter stood in her designer kitchen and told me not to come for Christmas because I didn't fit the vibe her in-laws wanted. On the drive home that afternoon, past the strip malls and the river and the cemetery where Jenna's name was carved in stone, the numbers started marching through my head like soldiers. 7 years. 12 payments a year. $2,200 each. By the time I pulled into the cracked driveway of my small rental duplex, the total was sitting in my chest like a boulder. $184,800. I sat there for a long time with my hands on the steering wheel, the engine ticking as it cooled. The sun slid lower, painting the world in that cold, pale winter light that makes everything look flatter, somehow more honest. I thought about Jenna's last request. I thought about promises kept and twisted. I thought about Christmas mornings with Emily in footy pajamas, tearing into wrapping paper while I filmed on a camcorder we'd bought secondhand. And I thought about a phrase I'd heard too many times lately from my daughter's mouth. "You offered, Dad. No one forced you." She was right. No one had forced me. Which meant I could stop. The next morning, I did something I should have done years before. I opened my laptop, logged into my online banking, and stared at the automatic transfer labeled mortgage, Ruiz/Lewis. Then I clicked cancel. A little pop-up asked, "Are you sure you want to delete this recurring payment?" For the first time in a long time, I felt sure about something. "Yes," I whispered, and hit confirm. The screen blinked. The payment vanished. I expected to feel crushing guilt. Instead, there was space. Fear too, sure. The knowledge that in 30 days, someone at the bank would raise an eyebrow. But also a strange, unfamiliar sense of putting my own oxygen mask on first. I picked up the phone and dialed the mortgage company. "Thank you for calling Cedar Valley Home Lending," a chipper voice said. "How can I help you today?" "My name is Daniel Ruiz," I said. "I'm calling about loan number 7743. I'm one of the borrowers." "Let me pull that up," she said, fingers clacking on keys. "Okay, I see it here. What can I do for you, Mr. Ruiz?" "I'd like to update some contact information," I said. "Please remove my phone number as the primary contact and make Emily Lewis the first point of contact." "Her number is..." I read it out. There was a pause. "All right," she said. "I've added her number as primary. You'll still be on file, of course." "That's fine," I said. "Also, I wanted to ask, if a payment is missed, who do you call first?" "The primary contact on the account," she replied. "We'll send notices by mail as well." "Good," I said softly. That's what I wanted to know. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Not from fear. From the adrenaline rush that comes when a man who's been bent over for too long finally starts to stand up straight. I didn't tell Emily right away that I'd canceled the payments. Some petty part of me wanted the shock to come from somewhere other than my voice. To arrive in the mail in a white envelope with a bank logo. To ring out of her phone from an unknown number with an 800 prefix. But I wasn't cruel. I also didn't want my grandson to wake up one day to find a foreclosure notice taped to the door because I'd let my pride outrun my conscience. So a week after the cancelled transfer, I drove back to the cul-de-sac. It was early evening. The streetlights were just flickering on, casting golden circles on the pavement. Inflatable reindeer and Santas bobbed in the slight wind in front yards. In Emily's driveway, Mark's SUV was parked at a crooked angle, half on the grass. I rang the bell. Oliver answered, all gangly limbs and missing front teeth. "Grandpa," he shouted, launching himself at me. "Did you bring cookies?" "Hey, buddy," I laughed, scooping him up. "No cookies today, sorry. I need to talk to your mom and dad. Grown-up stuff." He wrinkled his nose. "Boring," he declared, but dragged me inside anyway. They were both in the kitchen. Emily at the island with a laptop, Mark at the counter with a beer. "Dad," she said, surprise flashing across her face. "We weren't expecting you." "I figured," I said. "Can we talk?" Mark raised his eyebrows theatrically. "Is this about Christmas?" "Because we already." "It's about the house," I cut in. Emily's shoulders tensed. "What about it?" I pulled a folded piece of paper from my pocket and set it on the island. It was a summary I'd printed from my bank, 7 years of transfers, each line neat and impersonal. "This is how much I've paid toward your mortgage since you bought this place," I said. Mark glanced at it, then snorted. "We know, Dan. You've mentioned it a couple times." I ignored him. $184,800, I went on. "That's more than I've spent on myself in a decade. It's more than your mother and I paid for our first house combined." Emily's eyes skimmed the page, then flicked up to my face. "Why are you showing us this?" she asked slowly. "Because as of this month," I said, "I won't be making any more payments." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. "What?" Mark finally said. "I canceled the automatic transfer," I repeated. "I called the bank and had them list Emily as the primary contact. Starting next month, the mortgage is your responsibility." Emily's face went pale. "You can't just do that," she whispered. "Yes," I said quietly. "I can. And I have." Mark slammed his beer down. "This is ridiculous. We had an agreement." "No," I corrected. "We had a favor. An agreement involves all parties having a say. For 7 years, the agreement has been that you live in a house beyond your means while I quietly bankroll it and get told I'm too much trouble to invite for Christmas." "That's not fair," Emily said, voice trembling. "This has nothing to do with Christmas." "It has everything to do with Christmas," I shot back, surprising myself with the heat in my tone. "Because that conversation showed me exactly how you see me. I'm good enough to wire thousands of dollars a month with no notice. I'm not good enough to sit at your table when it might make your in-laws uncomfortable." She flinched like I'd hit her. "Dad, that's not." "Don't," I said, holding up a hand. "I've had 7 years to watch you both make choices. Upgrades instead of repairs. Vacations instead of savings. The newest phones, fancy strollers, private preschool. Every time you got a bonus, you called it catching up on life. Every time I got one, it went straight into your house." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "We thought you liked helping," she whispered. "I did," I said. "Until helping turned into being used." Mark shook his head, incredulous. "So what, you're just going to leave your grandson homeless?" "I am giving you a warning," I said evenly. You have a month before the payment you're used to me covering comes due. After that, there will be late fees, penalties. You can adjust. Cut expenses. Refinance. Sell. Do what adults do when they realize they've been living beyond their means. You can't expect us to just come up with that kind of money, Emily said. It's Christmas. I didn't expect my wife to get cancer at 39, I replied. Life doesn't care about your calendar. Oliver peeked around the corner, sensing the tension. Emily wiped her face quickly. Go back to your room, Ollie, she said, her voice high and false. We're just talking. He lingered. Are you mad at Grandpa? No, I said, forcing a smile. No one is mad. Grown-up stuff, remember? He studied my face like kids do when they know adults are lying but don't know why. Okay, he said finally, retreating. I turned back to his parents. I'm not doing this to punish you, I said. I'm doing it because I've realized that if I keep rescuing you from reality, you'll never learn to swim. And I'll drown right alongside you. Emily sank onto a stool. We were counting on you, she whispered. I know, I said. That's the problem. Mark paced, running his hands through his hair. So that's it? After everything, you're just done? I will always be your father, I said to Emily. I will always be Oliver's grandfather. If you have an emergency, real emergency, my door is open. But your mortgage is not an emergency. It's a bill. And bills are what responsible adults pay with their own money. She looked at me with the same expression she'd had when she was 5 and I'd refused to buy her the giant stuffed unicorn at the county fair. Disbelief mixed with a cracked sense of entitlement. You'll regret this, she said quietly. When we lose the house and Ollie has to move schools and everything falls apart, you'll regret that you didn't help when you could. Maybe, I said. But I already regret sacrificing my retirement, my health, and my self-respect for people who see me as an inconvenience at Christmas. I reached into my pocket one more time and pulled out a smaller envelope. There is one more thing, I said. This isn't all or nothing. I'm not a monster, despite what you might tell yourselves later. I slid the envelope across the island. Inside was a cashier's check for $3,000. This is my last contribution to your house, I said. Use it for this month's payment to buy yourselves time. Or don't. It's your choice. But after this, you're on your own. Emily didn't touch it. You're choosing your pride over your family, she said. No, I replied. I'm choosing boundaries so I can still be your family without resenting you every time I open my wallet. I left before I could say anything I'd regret. In the car, my phone buzzed with a text from Joe. You still good for fishing on the 27th? Weather looks decent. For the first time, I replied without mentally subtracting gas money from the mortgage payment. Yeah, I typed. Let's go. The mortgage company called Emily first, just like I'd arranged. I know because 2 weeks later, she started leaving me voicemails. Dad, the bank just called, one said, her voice tight. They said last month's payment didn't go through. Did something happen with your account? Call me back. I didn't. Not out of cruel satisfaction, but because I knew the old me would have cracked at the first tremor of panic in her tone. I needed space between her fear and my reflex to fix it. Another message came the next day. Okay, this isn't funny anymore, she snapped. We're getting late fees. Just make the payment and we'll talk about it after the holidays. After the holidays. As if December 25th was some magical forgiveness deadline. I spent Christmas Eve doing something I hadn't done since Jenna died. I went to the midnight service at our old church. The sanctuary was packed. Candles flickered. People sang Silent Night off-key and on heart. I sat in the back pew, hands clasped, and thought about all the Christmases that had led me here. The year Emily got her first bike. The year Jenna burned the ham and we ate cereal instead. The year we couldn't afford a tree, so we stuck pine branches in a bucket and called it rustic. I thought about the last 2 Christmases, sitting in Emily's living room, squeezed into a corner while the Lewises dominated the conversation, passing each other expensive gifts and nodding politely at mine. I thought about Barbara saying, "Isn't it nice that you can still chip in a little, Daniel," when I'd handed Emily a check labeled for the house. This year, my living room was small, my tree was artificial and lopsided, but every ornament was hung with intention. I made myself a simple dinner: ham steak, mashed potatoes, green beans, and ate it at the table Jenna and I had bought secondhand 30 years ago. No one criticized my cooking. No one told me I was too much. At exactly 7:15 p.m., my phone buzzed with a call from Emily. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, another. Then another. I finally listened to the last one. "Fine," she said, her voice ice-cold under the holiday music in the background. "Stay away. I hope you're enjoying your lonely Christmas. Just remember, you chose this." I set the phone face down and poured myself a glass of the good whiskey I usually saved for special occasions that never seemed to come. "This feels special enough," I told Jenna's photo on the mantel and raised my glass. A week later, on New Year's Eve, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Emily on the porch, wrapped in a coat with no gloves, her breath puffing in the cold air. Behind her, fireworks boomed faintly over the river. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She looked around my small living room like she was seeing it for the first time. The new recliner I'd bought with money that would once have gone to her mortgage. The fresh coat of paint on the walls. The patched spot on the ceiling where I'd finally fixed the leak. "Looks nice," she said awkwardly. "Thanks," I replied. "Sit?" We sat. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The clock ticked. Somewhere down the hall, my neighbor's TV blared a countdown special. "The bank called again," she said finally. "They said if we don't get current this month, they'll report us as delinquent to the credit bureaus." "I'm not surprised," I said. "That's how it works." "I used the check you gave us," she went on, voice tight. "It bought us time. But Mark's hours at the gym were cut again. We're behind on the car. Ollie's preschool tuition went up. We don't have $2,000 extra lying around." I nodded. "I know." She stared at me, eyes bright. "So help us," she said. "Please. Just until Mark gets his promotion. Or until I get a raise. We'll figure it out, we just need." "Emily," I interrupted gently. "How old are you?" She frowned. "What does that have to do with anything?" "How old?" I repeated. 31, she snapped. "And how old do you think I was when I bought my first house without anyone's help?" I asked. She hesitated. "You and Mom were, what, 25? 24, I said. "And we didn't have parents with gated communities and investment portfolios. We had one beat-up car, 2 minimum-wage jobs, and your grandmother's old couch." "This isn't the 80s, Dad," she shot back. "Things are more expensive now." "They are," I agreed. "And yet, somehow, you still managed to afford a 70-inch TV, 2 new iPhones, and that kitchen remodel last year." Color rose in her cheeks. "That was on a payment plan," she protested. And Mark got a bonus. So you spent it before you had it, I said softly. That's not a bonus. That's a trap. She leaned forward, hands clenched. Are you really going to sit there and judge us, she demanded, after everything you've done for us, and then withhold help when we need it most? I took a deep breath. I'm done judging, I said. I'm also done rescuing. Those aren't the same thing as abandoning you. Her laugh was harsh. Feels the same from where I'm sitting. I met her gaze. Do you know why I sold the house you grew up in? I asked. She blinked. Because you said it was too big for one person. Because of Mom. That's what I told you, I said. The truth is, I sold it because I couldn't afford both that mortgage and yours. I chose your future over my stability. I didn't ask you to do that, she whispered. No, I agreed. You didn't. I did it because I loved you, and because I thought sacrificing for your child was what good parents did. I don't regret helping you get a home. I regret letting that help turn into an unspoken law that your comfort matters more than my dignity. Her eyes filled. I never wanted you to feel that way, she said, voice cracking. Then why, I asked quietly, was there no room for me at your Christmas table? She swallowed hard. That's not fair, she said weakly. You're making it sound like it was all about the Lewises. Wasn't it? I asked. You were worried about your mother-in-law's opinion. About vibes. You weren't worried about how your own father would feel eating leftovers alone in a rented duplex while the house he pays for is full of people toasting around the tree. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I didn't think, she whispered. I just wanted to avoid drama. I thought you'd understand. I do understand, I said. I understand that you're used to me absorbing pain so you don't have to. I understand that as long as I showed up with money and no needs, I was convenient. The moment I had feelings that weren't pleasant, I was drama. She wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. So this is my punishment, she said. We lose the house because I hurt your feelings. This isn't punishment, I said. This is consequence. The house was never guaranteed. Not when you signed a 30-year loan based on numbers that only worked if a man pushing 60 kept working overtime and eating canned soup. I leaned forward. You have options, Emily, I said gently. You can cut expenses. Downgrade cars. Cancel subscriptions. Pick up extra shifts. Talk to the bank about refinancing. Rent out a room. Sell the house and buy something smaller that you can afford on your own salaries. She stared at me like I'd suggested she move to Mars. We can't pull Ollie out of his school, she whispered. We can't move. This is our home. Then fight for it, I said. With your own effort. Not with my bank account. The clock on the wall chimed midnight. Outside, fireworks exploded, colorful bursts reflected faintly in the window. Happy New Year, I said quietly. She laughed, a choked, humorless sound. Worst New Year's ever, she muttered. Not for me, I said. For me, it's the first New Year in a long time where my only resolution is to stop lighting myself on fire to keep other people warm. She stood abruptly. I can't believe you, she said. You're supposed to be the one person in the world I can count on. You can, I said. You can count on me to be honest, even when it hurts. You can count on me not to enable you into a lifetime of dependency. You can count on me to be here if you truly fall, not if you simply don't like the height of the ground you chose. She shook her head and walked to the door. When we lose everything, she said, hand on the knob, don't you dare say you weren't warned. I've been warning you for 7 years, I replied. You just finally ran out of my time to ignore it. The door closed behind her with a soft click. I sat back on the couch, exhaustion washing over me. I felt like I'd run a marathon in place. For the next few months, we didn't talk much. I heard things through the grapevine. From my sister, who'd talked to Emily. From Joe, whose wife had overheard something at the salon. Emily picked up extra shifts at the clinic. Mark tried to start a side business training clients out of their garage. They cut back on restaurant meals but kept the cleaning service because we're too busy, as Emily put it in one strained text. They made 2 partial payments to the bank and then missed one entirely. In March, they got the first official notice of default. This time, Emily didn't leave a voicemail. She showed up at my door again, this time with a crumpled letter in hand and dark circles under her eyes. I don't know what to do, she said simply. If you've never seen your child look at you with the kind of raw fear you remember from their first day of kindergarten, let me tell you, it hits different when they're 31 and holding a foreclosure notice instead of a lunchbox. Emily handed me the letter with shaking fingers. I read it slowly, even though I already knew what it would say. Past due balance, $4,732. Late fees. Threats carefully disguised as formal language. If the account is not brought current within 30 days, the lender may accelerate all sums due and proceed with foreclosure. They said we could maybe do a modification, she said, pacing my small living room. But we're already on a hardship plan from when Mark lost ours during COVID. They keep telling us to increase income or reduce expenses like it's just that simple. I didn't say anything. We cut cable, she went on. We canceled the gym membership. We sold the Peloton. Mark's trying to get more clients, but everyone's tightening their belts. I picked up Saturdays at the walk-in clinic. She laughed bitterly. You were right about the phones, by the way. We traded them in for older models. That's a start, I said. She stopped pacing and looked at me. We're still short, she said. Even if we somehow catch up this month, what about next month? Or the one after that? We're drowning, Dad. I gestured to the couch. Sit, I said. She sat, clutching the letter like it might bite. Okay, I said. Let's look at this like what it is, a problem with numbers and choices. You bring in X. Your bills are Y is bigger than X. You've trimmed some fat, but there's still a big chunk you can't cut without surgery. She nodded miserably. The mortgage is the tumor, I said. You can try to shrink it with negotiations, but at some point, you have to ask if keeping this particular house is worth everything you're sacrificing, not just money, but peace, sleep, your marriage. Tears welled up. I love our house, she whispered. Ollie loves his room, his school, his friends. Selling would feel like failing. Sometimes, I said gently, success isn't holding on at all costs. It's knowing when to let go before the thing you're clinging to drags you under. She swallowed. What are you saying? She asked. That we should sell? I'm saying, I replied, that if you sell now, you'll likely walk away with some equity. Not as much as if you'd been paying steadily, but enough for a fresh start. If you wait until the bank takes it, you'll walk away with nothing but bad credit and a story about how cruel the system is. She stared at the floor. We'd have to move to a smaller place, she muttered. Maybe not even in the same district. Yes, I said. You probably would. Her shoulders shook. I don't want to tell Ollie we're leaving, she said. I know, I said. I didn't want to tell you we were selling your childhood home either. But we survived. We made new memories. You can, too. She was quiet for a long time. The clock ticked. My neighbor's car pulled into the driveway next door. Would you help us? She asked finally, voice small. Not like before. Not with the payments. But, with the process. I don't even know where to start. I exhaled slowly. Yes, I said. I'll help you navigate. I'll go to meetings, talk to realtors, look over offers. I'll teach you everything I know so you don't get taken advantage of. Relief flashed across her face, followed quickly by humiliation. I feel like such a failure, she whispered. I reached out and took her hand. Failing would be pretending you can afford something you can't until someone else makes the decision for you, I said. This is facing reality. That's brave. She squeezed my hand back, then let go. What about Mark? She asked. He's going to lose it. He keeps saying something will come through if we just hang on. Then you need to have a hard conversation, I said. Together. This isn't about blame. It's about survival. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, Dad, she said quietly. For Christmas. For all of it. I was so focused on keeping peace with Mark's family that I stopped noticing when I was hurting you. I took you for granted. The words I'd longed to hear for years tasted bittersweet. I forgive you, I said. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back to the way things were. It means we move forward differently. What does differently look like? She asked. It looks like you and Mark living in a place you can afford on your own, I said. It looks like me being invited to holidays because you want me there, not because you feel obligated. It looks like you asking for advice rather than assuming my role is to be the walking wallet. She let out a shaky laugh. Walking wallet, she repeated. God, that's exactly what we did to you, isn't it? You treated me like a subscription, I said, unable to keep a wry smile off my face. Auto-pay Dad Plus. Cancel any time when he becomes inconvenient. She laughed through her tears. Guess we didn't read the fine print, she said. The free trial ended, I replied. We sat there until her breathing steadied. Then we made a plan. Over the next 2 months, we executed it. We called the bank together and explained they'd be putting the house on the market. The representative sounded almost relieved. A voluntary sale is less paperwork than a foreclosure. We met with 3 realtors and picked the one who didn't seem to be mentally counting her commission the whole time. We painted over the bold accent walls Emily had once insisted on and fixed the sticking front door. I watched my daughter sort through years of possessions, deciding what to keep, what to donate, what to sell. This was Ollie's first crib, she said, running a hand along the rail. We can't just get rid of it. You're not getting rid of memories, I reminded her. Just wood. She sold it to a young couple expecting their first child. When they came to pick it up, I saw something shift in her eyes, a flicker of recognition that life moves in circles, not straight lines. When the first offer came in, low and predatory, she wanted to accept it just to be done. I talked her through the numbers, the comps in the neighborhood, the art of counteroffering. We got them 5% more. On the day of closing, we sat in the lawyer's office, signing papers until our hands cramped. Mark was subdued, a far cry from the cocky 20-something who'd once said things like, "Debt is just a tool, man." As we left, the lawyer handed Emily a cashier's check. After paying off the mortgage, fees, and everything, he said, this is what's left. It wasn't a fortune. But it wasn't nothing, either. In the parking lot, Emily stared at the number. We're homeless, she said, laughing weakly. Homeless with a chunk of money and bad credit. You're not homeless, I said. You're in transition. You'll rent for a while. You'll save. You'll rebuild. You'll teach Oliver that a home isn't four walls you can't afford, it's the people inside them. She pocketed the check. Would you consider helping us with a deposit on a rental? She asked tentatively. Not paying our rent, just getting us in the door? I thought about it. I'll match whatever you put down yourselves, I said. If you put down 2,000, I'll add 2. If you put down 4, I'll add 4. But I won't be the first dollar. She nodded. Deal. Watching her and Mark hunt for rentals was like watching teenagers learn to drive in heavy traffic. Lots of near misses and overcorrections. They wanted something as nice as the house they just left for the price of an apartment from 10 years ago. Reality, as always, had other plans. In the end, they found a decent 3-bedroom townhouse on the edge of a less fancy suburb. No marble countertops. No landscaped cul-de-sac. But it was clean, safe, and most importantly, within reach. On move-in day, I showed up with pizza and a toolbox. Can you believe we're back to renting? Mark said, half joking as he struggled with a box labeled kitchen. Yes, I said. It's what most people do until they can truly afford to buy. Owning is not a personality trait, despite what the Lewises think. He smirked. They're not thrilled, he admitted. Barbara practically had a stroke when we told her we were selling. She kept saying, we can't go backward. Sometimes backward is the only way forward, I said. He surprised me by nodding. I get that now, he said quietly. Oliver ran up with a superhero figurine in each hand. Grandpa, come see my new room, he demanded. I followed him down the hallway to a space half the size of his old one. The walls were bare, but his bed was already made with the same dinosaur comforter. Look, he said proudly. I put the glow-in-the-dark stars back on the ceiling. It's like my old room, but different. Different can be good, I said. Mom says we had too much house before, he added matter-of-factly. Now we have enough house. Your mom is smart, I said, meeting Emily's eyes in the doorway. She smiled, small but real. That Christmas, almost a year after the one I'd been uninvited from, Emily called me in November. Dad, she said, we're doing something small this year. Just us and a couple friends. But there's always a seat for you, if you want it. I hesitated for a second, the old bruise throbbing. Will the Lewises be there? I asked. No, she said. They're flying to Aspen. They invited us, but we said no. We can't afford it, and honestly, I don't want another Christmas where the main topic is how we're managing while someone else pays the bill. I smiled. I'd love to come, I said. On Christmas Day, I walked into their townhouse carrying a casserole and a small, carefully wrapped box for Oliver. The tree in the corner was modest but bright. The stockings were mismatched but full. The kitchen was cluttered and smelled like roast chicken. Emily hugged me at the door, really hugged me, not the quick, distracted squeeze she used to give. I'm glad you're here, she said. Me too, I replied. During dinner, we went around the table saying what we were grateful for. When it was Emily's turn, she looked at me. I'm grateful for second chances, she said. And for learning the difference between help and enabling before it was too late. Later, as we washed dishes together, she nudged me with her elbow. You know, she said, if you ever want to buy a place again someday, you could. For you, I mean. Not for us. With what you're not paying on our mortgage anymore. I'm thinking about it, I admitted. Maybe a little cabin by the lake. Somewhere I can fish without driving an hour. You should, she said. You deserve it. That night, back in my quiet duplex, I sat in my chair and thought about all the twists that had led here. My daughter once told me not to come for Christmas, so I stopped paying the mortgage. At the time, it felt like the end of something. In a way, it was. It was the end of me believing that love meant limitless sacrifice. The end of quietly erasing the boundaries between generosity and self-erasure. But it was also the beginning of something better. The beginning of a relationship where we could show up for each other without receipts attached. Where invitations weren't transactional and holidays weren't payment plans. People like to say that blood is thicker than water. What they forget is that sometimes, the thickest thing in a family isn't love, it's entitlement. When I finally cut off the flow of my money, the truth about our bonds surfaced. Emily could have chosen resentment. She could have doubled down, told everyone her father abandoned her. Instead, when the ground she'd been walking on gave way, she learned how to build her own. I didn't walk away from my daughter. I walked away from a role she'd gotten too comfortable assigning me: financier, emotional shock absorber, invisible guest at a table my money paid for. Now, when I sit at that table, it's as a father, a grandfather, a man whose presence is valued for more than his bank account. And every month, when the 15th comes and goes without a $2,200 transfer leaving my checking account, I smile a little. Because that money isn't just staying in my pocket. It's a reminder that the price of admission to my love is no longer access to my wallet. If your grown child ever tells you there's no room for you at a table you've been paying for, remember this. You're allowed to stop footing the bill. You're allowed to choose respect over resentment. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself is to step back and let the mortgage, and the lesson, finally be theirs to pay.